So here we are. It's Pakistan's tour of Australia. It's the most anticipated series in the Pakistani calendar. It happens only once every what, 5, 6 years, and the result is anybody's guess. Or so I wish. I've got Zahid with me, and of course, guys, please stick around till the end because we're gonna have our infamous predictions. Not sure there's much to predict here, given the last 25, 30 years. But who knows? There's only one way, and that way is up. Zahid, we start this test series probably better than the last time we were here there in 2019, but a lot worse than 2016.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially on the batting front, 2019 it was a bit of a makeshift series as well. From what I remember, it was in November, early November, from what I remember. So timing wise, it didn't really work. Pakistan's team was in transition. It was post the Miss You era. So yeah, I mean, regardless of the team that's played, I mean, we had the best Pakistan team, one of the best Pakistan teams of all time in 1999, and they got beat 3-0. Justin Langer and umpiring decisions question mark. But anyways, but still, look. To be honest, yeah, I mean, not even cautiously optimistic about this, especially with the news that's come in over the past couple of days on the team and the team's fitness and all of that. The practice game, although Shan Masood had a double hundred, the rest of the team was pretty average, if not pretty poor. So yeah, look, I mean, another tour of Australia, the first game in the Optus Stadium at Perth. I'm sorry to disappoint our fans, but I think it's more of the same for Pakistan.
Yeah, so like it's a couple of things you said that I just want to pick up on. Right, first one is you said it was a team in transition in 2019 after the Miss You era. Only Pakistan has a 2 year long transition. Misbah and Yunus retired in March 2017. And by October, November 2019, we were still in transition. That just shows, now, yes, that shows the great hole that those two left, but that also shows Pakistan's perennial issues with transitioning seamlessly. We have it again now, don't we? I mean, we have a bit of a transitionary team to some extent, but I think the main point I'd make to 2019 is obviously 2019. It was the bowling that was I don't even have adjectives for it, and unfortunately, I was hoping that we'd have a proper bowling attack this time, but of course, with Naseem Shah's injury,
Yeah.
we don't have that, right? At least you got Shaheen,
Yeah.
Naseem, and maybe one filler, whether that's Wasim or Haris or Hassan. But now you only have
Yeah.
Shaheen, and you have a Shaheen Afridi who's not that, so not as in form on song as he used to be. So that's a question. But I actually like starting with this theme of comparing to the teams of old, right? I think, look, 99 was a phenomenal team. But again, if you remember, that was a team, I think it was the end of 1999 that we
Yeah.
played. It
Right.
was a team that sort of just passed its peak. Suddenly, the infighting of the 2000s, the fitness issues, the captaincy changing every day. We were about to move into that era. This was
Yeah.
sort of the last hurrah. And I think after that Hobart decision, I mean, I don't want to talk about that. That just makes me very depressed. It was quite sad. But more recently, Zahid, I think, 2016 was a solid team, right? That was a solid
Yeah.
team. We were lucky that we didn't play in Perth in that one. We played in the Gabba, which is Australia's fortress, but it didn't at least have the bouncy tracks of Perth.
Yeah.
And we almost pulled off that heist in the first test, and then we suddenly lost our way after that. But the one
2009.
that's the one that was going to come out, the one that really hurts. It was
Yeah.
a team that didn't have great batting. I mean, it had Yusuf there, but and Umar Akmal, who was just this prodigy that was found, but it was the bowling.
Yeah.
And man, do I miss that bowling. Amir and Asif tearing it up. I remember Sydney, Saeed Ajmal also. I mean, or Danish Canaria. it was just a really strong attack. And I just feel we have, to some extent, been a bit unlucky. Every time something or the other has happened. 2009 was that big fighting episode that, Yusuf had to take the captaincy reins right at the end. The only time we were fully stable was 2016. And I
Yeah.
think Misbah says it's his biggest regret because he knows he captained very poorly, very defensively. And, we had a good chance in Melbourne when we scored 400, but we ended up conceding 300 for the loss of one wicket. So,
Yeah. I think that's probably the problem with Pakistan. You mentioned at the end, you would expect going to Australia, Perth, bouncy conditions. You'd expect the batting has been the problem. But if you look at it statistically as well, it's actually been the bowling that's really struggled,
very
right?
good point. Yeah.
Because you've had, Azhar Ali got a double hundred in Melbourne, I think it was. Yunus Khan got a hundred something.
160. Yeah.
Yeah, 100, and then of course Babar Azam got 100 in 2019. Yasir Shah got 100 in 2019.
You're forgetting the
So
best, Asad Shafiq. It's such an
Asad
Asad
Shafiq,
Shafiq thing to do,
yeah,
Zahida. That's such
of
an Asad
course,
Shafiq thing to
and
do.
then shout out to
Forget
Asad
about the.
Shafiq. Shout out to Asad Shafiq for he's announced his retirement from all forms of Pakistan cricket, and actually apparently from what we understand, he might be on the selection committee somehow. But anyways, that's it.
But yet you forgot that amazing 137 in the cap. Such. I remember 3 hours after
It
that,
was
an
still a
Indian scored a
loss. It
triple
was still a
hundred.
loss.
It was still a loss, yes. But yeah, I completely agree, Zahid.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then Babar Azam got 100 and then 97 in the test match after, and then Rizwan got 98. So, there have been some good batting performances. Bowling wise, I can only remember what Muhammad Amir is 5-4 in Sydney, and that's really
Asif.
it.
And Richie Bennard made that comment and went, "Oh, he's only been out of cricket for the last 5 years. Oh no," very sarcastic because he came in and got a wicket in his first over. Yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah,
Asif. Asif was the guy. But you're very right. Now, I think that Sydney Test is a bit of a sort of an exception because it rained a lot and that was a big bowling wicket. But just I think people just need to understand one thing. Contrary to what you think, because we can't seem to play bounce, Australia is actually a very good place to bat.
yeah,
Unlike New Zealand, unlike South Africa, and even unlike England, the ball doesn't move around much. The pitches are true, so you get true bounce. You just have to get used to the bounce. There's nothing uneven about it. There's not that much swing and seam movement outside the initial few overs. So once you get used to the bounce, the ball comes onto the bat very nicely, and you can, if you expect it, you can prepare and anticipate in advance. Right, there's nothing uneven, there's nothing, which actually makes the bowling tougher to do there. Right, it's not like New Zealand where all you've got to do
yeah,
is bowl it, pitch it up, and magic will happen. Same
yeah,
with South Africa. In Australia, you need to work to get your wickets. You need to earn them, right? We are used to earning wickets in slow tracks
yeah.
of the UAE and Pakistan, whereas here we need to earn them by being patient with our fast bowling, right? Or bowling with with knowledge of how the conditions play out, i.e., bounce here, adjusting your line and length, and just
Yeah, I
not
think
relying too much
it's
on
about
swing.
the length adjustment, right? I mean, you can't have Shaheen trying for that magic ball
Exactly.
full and straight every time.
Exactly.
Maybe the first couple of balls, but that's it. So I think that's going to be the biggest issue. I think our spinners have been woeful in Australia. I mean, Yasir Shah's figures of 1 for 2,000 or something like that. I mean, it's been some of the figures were embarrassing. So
In fairness, Danish Canaria was good, right?
yeah,
He had a decent thing. I think it's what makes you admire Shane Warne so much,
yeah,
right? Because other than Sydney, Australia is not a great place
yeah,
to bowl spin, especially if you're a finger spinner. With leg spin, you get the extra bounce on the wicket, so
yeah.
that helps. But again, it's length adjustment. It's basically being patient, hitting your hard lengths, looking for movement off the wicket as opposed to swing. These things, and also the Kookaburra ball, right? I mean, in England,
Yeah.
you've got the Duke's ball, which swings more. So all these things mean that it's actually not that tough to bat and quite tough to bowl. India made that transition very well. There was a time for, I think, now they were always more successful in Australia, but after the 2003 series, there was a 10-year gap between, or 14-year gap between when they won the test, their last test match, and then the Pujara
Yeah.
performance that got the win, right? So they figured it out. They realized that actually it's all in the head. It's this
Yeah.
thing about Australia, this mighty Australian team in those, in the MCG, those big, big stadiums. But actually, if you just get used to the conditions, you can actually, enforce the situation with the bat and not let the situation ahead of, get ahead of you.
You can still argue and that these guys, have probably nothing to lose. Like the Indian team in 2021, was it the likes of Siraj and, but Bumrah was injured, Kohli had to go back.
I
Half the
mean,
team was out injured, right?
please don't
And
forget 36 all out. I
yeah,
mean, to come back
exactly.
from that, I mean, that's stuff of legend. I mean, we have Amazon Prime having series for like the Australia gay, the Australian team. Like you've got the Ashes, you had
Yeah,
the whole saga post sandpaper, but here you've got this amazing comeback in Australia of all places, right?
yeah,
But
of
actually,
course.
now coming back to the squad, right? Now we've
Yes.
talked about the past, right? The squad itself. Let's start with we're on the topic of bowling, so let's just start with
Yeah,
bowling only, right? Shaheen Afridi at one end, right? Who's
yeah.
going to bowl the other, right? Is it Hassan Ali? Is it Muhammad Wasim? I think if it were me, it would probably be both of them actually, because I think you don't
I
really
think it
have
will be.
much choice. And then who's your spinner?
Yeah, I mean now they've got no option, right? Because Abrar is injured or not fit, so it's got to be it has to be Noman, right? They can't. You've got Sajid Khan who's apparently flying in,
Son.
so I don't think they're gonna straight away put him into the team. So it has to be Noman. They literally have no other option unless they go with Agha Salman as kind of a part-time spinner, but that's really it.
But
Or
this
they
is
go with four seamers and they go with Salman and Saud as your spinners, right? And that's the only other option where you have three pacers in Shaheen, Wasim, Hassan, Fahim Ashraf, which I think should be the case in
I
in
see.
any way.
I think plays. Yeah.
But it's only a case of whether you have Fahim at seven or Fahim at eight, and then Salman at seven, and then you have your fast bowlers and one spinner. So I think that's the only big decision for the team. I think Shaheen and Hassan are locked in, and it's probably Fahim and Wasim. In my opinion, they'll probably. The thing is, you look at it statistically, right? Agha Salman was your man of the series against Sri Lanka, right?
Yeah, yeah. You don't need to
So
pick.
you,
Yeah.
so for all our affection towards Agha Salman during the World Cup, I think he does warrant a place into in the test team. But where do you play him? Do you play him as the lone spinner along with Saud? So do you play like two half spinners? It's a very difficult, because I think that the top six or top five pretty much, top six I think pretty much picks itself. I don't think there are any issues with that. I don't think they should go with Fahim as the third seamer. That's just going to create. I think it's not fair on Fahim, and you're going with that. You're going with a bowler light.
Does Noman Ali give you more with the ball than Salman Aga does with bat and ball combined? That's the question you need to answer yourself. Now, I know Noman can stick around with the bat, but please ignore that, okay? And also, Noman's not as good a fielder, let's be honest as well. So it'll count on big, big, large outfields in Australia at the Optus. So, personally, if I was selector, I would actually go with a four seam attack, because you've got to remember one thing. When you're comparing Noman with Salman or Noman with Fahim Ashraf, unfortunately, Pakistan's record at Perth, I appreciate most of the games have been at the WACA, but it's similar conditions.
This is worse
But
apparently.
it's worse. Apparently, it's worse. But actually, no. It The WACA was very difficult earlier on. Like
Yeah,
2004, I remember we were all out for 72.
yeah,
That famed batting lineup that we had. But then it became easier. They changed the soil. It became easier, slower, and all. But then now the Optus is back to the WACA of old,
yeah.
apparently, right? So I think you've it may be, people may call it defensive here, but I would actually go with Salman Aga and Fahim Ashraf. I just think it gives you a little more assurance with the bat. I would not have said this had Abrar Ahmed been fit,
Yeah.
but because it's Noman Ali, I just don't see him in. not just in Australia, but more specifically at Perth,
Yeah.
getting more than uh, getting many wickets, to be really honest, or being effective even. If even if he cause even if he creates pressure at one end, that's still good enough. But I don't even see him doing that. Not at Perth.
Say, you'd have, if you just for completeness sake, you have Asad Shafiq, Imamul Haq, um, Shan Masood, Captain Babar Azam, Saud Shakil,
So okay.
Safraz Ahmed. Is that it confirmed?
Yeah, 100%. Please,
Despite,
yeah. Look, I know people are talking about Rizwan. Let's just address that very quickly now that you've touched on it. Look, I love Mohammad Rizwan. I really do. But I don't think it's fair to drop a player who was man of the series your in not just in not your last series but the series before that,
yeah,
and in your last series actually played a match saving innings in the first, I think it was the first test match, I think it was. So you can't drop him. Now I do believe that yes, his keeping has fallen short of his standards, right? There were a couple of catches that went down in the tour game, and it's
yeah,
Australia. You can't give them any chances, and it's at Perth, bouncy tracks. It's tougher to keep, but you've got to back Safraz Ahmed.
yeah.
I just cannot fathom anybody justifying having Rizwan instead of Safraz on the back of a 3-day tour game.
Yeah, I agree. At least for this for the first couple of games, and it's not like Rizwan has been exceptionally good. People will go back to his 98 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but I mean, come on, that was
I
four
mean,
years ago. Right?
look at Safraz's average in 2016. He averaged
Yeah,
56.
there you go. There you go.
There you go. Like,
So yeah, Safraz at 6, Agha Salman at 7, Fahim Ashraf at 8, and then you have Shaheen Wasim, well, Hassan Ali, Shaheen Wasim.
I mean,
So
all those who can bat keep talking about this tail, and then the tail showed us what they actually were capable of in the World Cup.
exactly.
But on
Um,
paper, it's a decent tail.
yeah, and I think Australia pretty much picks itself also. Spend some time on the Australians. I think it's a very, very, they haven't experimented. They've gone. I think they've only got one big decision to make with their pace bowling as well. But they've got a pretty settled lineup, I think, especially with the Ashes recently. They've got David Warner, Usman Khwaja, Marnus, Steve Smith. Travis Head would have been at 5, but he's ruled himself out. So from the squad, it looks like Mitchell Marsh probably is the natural fit as batsman only. You don't seem
Yeah,
convinced?
yeah. I mean, it's just obviously if you're thinking, as an Australian fan, that batting lineup looks a bit. It's unfair to say light because Mitch Marsh is a great
Yeah,
great limited overs batter, or as capable of being a great limited overs batter, and he's certainly had a really good record of late. But in red ball cricket, I'd say if I'm Pakistan, having Mitch Marsh at 5 and Gary at 6 and Cameron Green at 7, there's a lower order who is very capable, but
yeah,
also one which can collapse.
yeah. Maybe
So
one number too high for each of them, but
exactly that, right? I mean,
yeah,
now Cameron Green, okay, fine, fair enough. I think
yeah,
7 fine suits him, but I think Gary would also be 7. I would say Mitch Marsh would probably be a 6 in Test cricket.
yeah,
Now, don't get me wrong. I think he's very capable, um, especially limited overs cricket. I'm a big fan, and I think he's definitely going to be one of the leading players for
yeah,
Australia in this new era. But I think in Test cricket he's still unproven. So I
yeah,
think that's the question for
yeah.
Pakistan. Can they break that top 4, the solid top 4, into this underbelly that is relatively untested?
Yeah. I
That's
think
the
that
that's.
yeah. And getting David Warner. I mean, he has a real number on us in Australia. I
I
don't
just
know.
don't get
And
it.
it's
I
apparently
don't
his
get
last
no no.
series, right? So he's going to retire after this.
Yeah, and what a retire. Like you clearly have a bunny team, and that's Pakistan. I mean, all of Australia has
Yeah,
their bunny team is
yeah,
Pakistan, right? Like, I mean, it's really
yeah,
funny because we also give him a chance every time. Please don't
yeah,
forget when he scores 300 against us, Naseem Shah had bowled like 8 no balls that were not called, and then the one
yeah,
time that it was called is when he got a wicket,
yeah,
right? So, I mean, certainly the gods just really,
yeah,
really side with David Warner against Pakistan.
yeah,
But look, as I said, like if Pakistan, and I think David Warner is probably I know he's strong against Pakistan, but I think out of the top four, he's someone who hasn't quite had great success recently in red ball cricket. So if we can get him early and get through that top
A
four,
crash course from Stuart Broad maybe for the fast bowlers.
maybe around the wickets. So goodbye, Shaheen gets. Imagine how radical it would be in Shan Masood's first game as Test captain. Be like, Shaheen, I think we're gonna target round the wicket right arm and get Mohammad Wasim and Hassan Ali. And imagine social media will erupt. Okay, who is this guy? And if it works, that's
Yeah.
it. That's it. Shan Masood after
No.
Imran Khan. That's it. It's he
but
doesn't
but
even need
yeah.
to win a game.
But yeah,
And
back to the 11. So I think the only question they've got is Lion will play. I think Hazel or Cummins will obviously will play. Hazelwood most likely. So I think the question for them is really Stark versus Scott Boland. Um,
I
given
think
Scott
in Perth
Boland's
it's gonna be
stacks.
yeah, but I think in Perth the pace of Stark. Surely, I mean, if I were Pakistan, I would want Scott Boland, very capable bowler, and I think he should probably get picked for the other tests. But I think
Yeah,
the pace of Stark in Perth is going to be something, especially against a team that struggles with pace and bounce.
yeah,
That's
yeah. I
what I think.
mean, I'd probably go with that. I think the only thing for Scott Boland is his average is ridiculous at home. I think his Ashes performance was okay, but in Australia he has like seriously unreal stats. But yeah, like you say, maybe not in Perth. He might play in the other two games, but that's a very solid team. Either way, I think Australia are pretty well balanced and
Yeah, yeah. But I still think that low order is untested. So let's bring that out sooner. But that'll be the difference. But just to
yeah.
temper any expectations from Pakistanis watching, that'll be the difference between a defeat and an innings defeat. Okay, let's just put it mildly. I'm sorry. I feel bad saying that
and
even in jest. I hope Pakistan do well, but let me just paint something for you. Whenever Pakistan have a terrible series, or let's say the World Cup, or terrible series against India where we get thrashed 3-0, even against England where we get thrashed 4-0, the captain usually doesn't survive in Pakistan, right? We know it. Like we've seen it with the World Cup, we've seen it with so many other big series against big teams. But notice something: we go to Australia, we always lose 3-0, but the captain never loses his job. And that is a reflection of the level of expectation that Pakistan have. They'll be like, you know what, 3-0,
it
koi
doesn't
baat nahi.
matter.
It reminds me of, your mom trying to console you. It's okay, it doesn't matter. It's like one of those, like just
Yeah.
before you get your exam results, it's okay. Whatever you do, I'm always proud of you. That is the message the PCB gives the captain. We're proud of you no matter what. So
And
that
I
just
guess
shows you.
I guess we can use that as a formality now to move on to our predictions because I think we've said enough to make it pretty obvious what we think is going to happen. But just I guess the series overall, and then the first test match.
My heart and mind are a well, I'd say my heart will say 2-0 Australia. We may manage to draw a test, but my mind is firmly in the 3-0 camp, right? In terms of, we can even have like top run scorer from both sides. Top run scorer, David Warner. I'm not even going to doubt that. We'll probably have the most amazing swan song ever because that's Pakistan,
Yeah,
the gift that keeps on giving in Australia. For Pakistan, I'm actually going to say Babar Azam. We haven't spent much time talking about Babar Azam here, but I think freed from the pressures of captaincy, especially when Pakistan aren't doing well, I think we're going to see Babar Azam in his full flowing best. May not be in the first test match, but it may over time come out. So I'm going to go with that. In terms of bowling, I think it's going to be on their side. I'm actually going to go with Hazelwood. Big fan of him. I think he's just the bounce, the accuracy, Glenn McGrath style.
of course.
And
This is the one.
runouts for Pakistan. Runouts. I don't. I just like Shaheen Afridi. I mean, whatever. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would, yeah, Abrar maybe, but no, Shaheen Afridi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I do. First test. Let's go with your prediction for the whole
Um,
series, then I'll go
yeah,
with.
look, similar to you. Look, I mean, I was maybe thought maybe 2-0 to something could happen, but as I was reading out the squads, I was like, no, this is
This
3-0.
is rough deal.
3-0 Australia. I think for Australia it's going to be Marnus Labuschagne. We just can't get him out. And then Pakistan, I think Shan Masood, captain leading from the front. Let's see. At
You're
least his
forgetting
intent.
Shan. You're forgetting Shan Masood's uncanny knack of scoring a big hundred and or double hundred, whatever, and following it up with like seven single digit scores. Let's hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I like Sean. I think he's
I
has
think
good
yeah, I think
captain.
that mentality that he's got, hopefully that's going to come through in his batting. So I'll back him. And then with the ball, Australia, I would have said Hazelwood as well, but for the sake of being different, I'll go Pat Cummins. I don't think Stark will play all the games, so that's why I wouldn't go with him. And Pakistan, I'll go Hassan Ali. In test matches. In test matches.
Man, no, I mean, I would have. I think Mohammad Wasim could have been a better pick because I
I don't think
remember
Wasim is going to play
most.
all the games. I don't think he's going to play all the games. I think Hassan Ali is probably he's going to play all three.
Yeah,
Wasim,
but if
I'm
you
not sure.
remember,
I'm not sure he'll play in Sydney. I don't think
but
they'll play say, four
true,
streamers in Sydney.
but
Yeah.
but look, but you notice one thing, Zahid, and I have to give credit to Australia for doing this. That really trying to big up the Pakistanis. Oh, Babra, Nathan Lyon, one of the best batters in the world against spin. I'm like, oh, I love Babar Azam. I really do. One of the best we've ever had. But he has a weakness against spin, especially finger spins. Let's not doubt ourselves here,
Yeah.
right? He's much better against pace and spin, but I have a feeling that the Australians have been told to like big up Pakistan because they're scared the numbers will be so low from spectators and viewership, given past records. So it's a bit condescending when I read that. Oh, I love to have the Pakistanis over. I think it's actually quite a settled team. I'm like, what? It's quite an experienced team, right? What?
Yeah.
My favorite was, oh yeah, always a pleasure to have such those players of class coming in. They always tend to do well here. And I'm like, you mean the two test matches that they last played where Rizwan and Babar scored a few, you know 50s and 60s and 80s and 90s? I mean, come on, like, spare us the
Mm.
thing. But to those wondering where Yasser Shah is, I think people are wondering whether he should have been picked. I think, look, it's very easy to hold on to past glory, right? It's the easiest thing. We'll all go back.
Yeah.
Like when Shaheen Afridi was injured at that Asia Cup, some people were bringing back Mohammad Irfan. Usko kya ho gaya? Let's just say that, Yasir Shah's day is done. He's really unfit. You can see him in domestic
And just,
cricket.
just look at his stats in Australia. I think
And just
that
look at that, please. Just look at that. Forget the 100. Forget the 100. If you're choosing a leg spinner because he scored 100 after following on, I think that is your case there and then. you know.
And I guess we don't need predictions for the first test because I think 3-0, 3-0 makes it pretty obvious who we're going for in the
Yeah.
first test match.
Yes.
um,
But the one thing
yeah.
I'll say is, you know, like the one I think the batter in the first test match, for me, I think it'll be Usman Khwaja from their side, and from our side, it's not going to be Babar. Babar will ease into it. I actually think it's going to be I'll say Shan Masood. I think it'll be different for
Okay.
the first test match. Um,
I'll go Abdullah Shafiq for the first test match. How about
good
that?
shout, actually. Very good shout. Good shout.
For his cuts and pulls in Australia. Let's see.
Let's see. Definitely not Imam ul Haq. Definitely not Imam ul Haq. We should see what do you think Imam ul Haq's scores are going to
Oh
be? I'm
god,
going to give
Mamul
one.
Haq.
Let's go with that. Let's go with that.
I'll go 6 and 12.
Oh, you've given him a double-digit score, have you?
A couple
Oh
of
dear.
boundaries outside edges, or maybe goes for a pull and one top edge is for
Eh,
six or something, you
no,
know.
no, you
But
know what? He's one of those that he'll be so adamant to prove us all wrong. That he's going to show really determined self for a decent 27. And then just when he thinks 25 of like 50, I've done my bit. I've showed everyone that I can bat. Then he'll go for a hook and he's going to get out. And that'll be the end of that. And you'll go and be like, you know what? I think I've cemented my place in the next test match. but I'm gonna go. Yeah, but that's that. But yeah, I guess there you have it. Look, thank you, Zahid, for this. We're going to be obviously keeping a close eye during the test series. We'll be, bringing up lots of content during the test matches. So please stay tuned. Um, we're hoping that Pakistan put in a fight. We're hoping that it's a series that may be a lot closer than the scoreline may end up showing. Let's put it that way. But yep, thanks, Zahid, and we'll speak soon.
Thank you.